Hi, my name is Jonathon Martinez. I'm 24, and this is my moving on story. So growing up for me, in my family, there was always a really big placeholder in our lives for sports, and that became who I wanted to be known for and known as someone who's very, very competitive and very, very successful when it came to sports. So that little mindset grew into a very toxic a state of mind to where I began to kind of think of like I'm in charge of my life. Like I'm gonna be able to get myself out of like this situation, or I'm gonna be able to get myself out of the valley and just become somebody, somebody worth knowing. That toxic mindset was just as strong as ever around that point in time in my life. I ended up blowing my shoulder out my senior year playing baseball at a game that didn't even really matter, and I knew right then and there that that was a really big bump in the road, and that was something that I didn't plan for, and that completely just wrecked everything that I had set for my life in the future for the next level, and I didn't really know how to handle that well. I think at that point I just started to spiral because everything I had set forward in my life was just completely coming to an end. So I got introduced to Ultimate towards the end of my senior year, and the first time I was exposed to it, I automatically knew that this game was something that I'm going to be able to strive in, and this game is going to change my life. So for many that don't know what Ultimate's pretty much the easiest way to explain it is Ultimate's pretty much football, kind of football gameplay. But instead of a football, we're actually throwing frisbees, and so that sport, when I was introduced, I automatically knew that that was going to be a staple in my life, and slowly it just began to overtake and to fill another slot in my life that I lost from playing baseball. As months went on, I graduated high school. I'm still with my girlfriend. I got the opportunity to work for the post office, which was, for me, very, very big. It was a very big deal. As a 20-year-old, being able to work and have a really good job and have a steady income. At the time, I had a really cool car for me. It was a 95 Toyota 4Runner, which was my baby. I loved it. So I had a car, I had a really good job, I had a girlfriend, everything felt perfect. As months go on, I'm still playing Ultimate, and that's going very well. My job is going better than ever than I expected. Things were starting to get a little rocky with my relationship, and I soon ended up deciding to just break it off because there were certain things that we didn't see eye to eye, and I just felt that it would just be better for both of us to just pretty much just split. That just increased and brought back that toxic mindset and just like amped it up to like 100. So at that point, I was 20 years old. I had a really good job, I had a car, and I was single. And everything felt like I was in control of everything. That I knew what was gonna happen in my life, and no one was gonna tell me what to do. So on July 30th in 2017, the team that I found playing Ultimate decided to go to a tournament in College Station. And so we ended up going up there to play. It was my first tournament. I was very excited. I was looking forward to it a lot. It was a weekend tournament, so Saturday went really well. Sunday, the last day, it was the final game. I believe we were winning against some teams that I can't even remember. We were making really, really good movement upfield, and I went for a route. In my head, I'm like, okay, I've done this 1,000 times, it's no big deal. So I just remember going for the cut, planting my right foot into the ground, or trying to cut back as quickly as possible as I could. And I just remember my entire body weight just staying right on my ankle and just completely rolling over on it. and immediately I felt a really sharp pain in my ankle, and I just knew something was wrong. Like, this does not feel right. It doesn't feel good at all. So I was able to get helped out to the sidelines, and immediately I sat down on the field, and I took my shoe off, which is, if anybody knows about injuries, it's the last thing you want to do. So as soon as I took my shoe off, my ankle automatically swelled up, and right then and there I just knew it wasn't good and I was done for the day. So my teammates helped me to the medical tent, and from there I was just icing it and elevating it as quickly as possible and as much as possible before we had to head home. So the tournament ends. We didn't really do well, but it was my first tournament. I was really excited about it. We pack up the car, and I believe it was the worst car ride I've ever been in. We, for some reason, I don't know who thought of it, but we ended up taking a Prius to College Station, which is 6 hours away from my home, from College Station to McAllen, it was horrible. I just remember just driving the entire way with my knee pretty much up to my neck, and it was just very, very claustrophobic. I wasn't able to elevate my ankle at all. So fast forward to Monday morning, I had to get up early for work. Still working for the post office. That work consisted of me of pretty much sitting down the entire day, so not elevating again that day. Tuesday was pretty normal. I didn't have work, I was off, so I just hung out home and played video games, played guitar, elevated my ankle a little bit. Wednesday came. That was the day that pretty much turned my whole world upside down. It started off as a normal day. I ate breakfast, and I went to go play basketball with my little brother at a local gym. So then we played basketball for about maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And we decided to go get lunch at Peter Piper. As we're ordering, I noticed that some of my friends were there, and I just remember walking up to them and saying hi. And then I remember us planning on hanging out later that night and just probably play video games, hanging out, just do whatever 20-year-olds did at that time. And so we ate our lunch, and it was completely fine, nothing too weird or out of the ordinary. And I remember telling my brother, hey, I gotta go, practice is at 6:30. Let's just go home and hang out. So I remember being at home, heading home, and just hanging out there, playing guitar, playing video games with my brother. 5:30 came around, or 5:45 came around. And I decided to start getting dressed for practice. And as I was getting dressed, my mom walked into my room, and immediately as soon as she walked into my room, I can tell from her face that there was something that was about to happen. There was something wrong. Like I said before, I was 20 years old. I had money, I had a car, I was single. No one was gonna tell me what to do. No one was gonna take control of my life. I'm in control of my life. And so for her to come into my room and demand me to fix my lifestyle, I wasn't having any of it. And we then proceeded to have probably one of the biggest arguments I've ever had with my mom. And to this day, I haven't had an argument that bad, and I don't ever plan on having one. It consisted of a lot of yelling and a lot of slamming of doors. And I just remember just ending that argument with slamming a door and going into my brother's room. And I just remember venting, like, no one's gonna tell me what to do. Like, she's not gonna come into my life and ruin all the plans I have. Like, I'm in control. And after that, I just remember telling him, like, hey, I gotta go to the restroom real quick before I go. And as soon as I walked into the restroom, that's pretty much where God decided to change everything. So as I walked into the restroom, nothing out of the ordinary. I didn't feel any different. So I just decided to just pretty much do my business. It was just business as usual, I guess. I just remember just being there and just slowly feeling my left side of my body just start slowly deteriorating or like disappearing or like not being able to feel that at all. And I just remember the feeling of just falling forward and losing my weight entirely. And I ended up face planting into the wall in front of the toilet, and somehow was able to just kick myself into our walk-in shower. And so our walk-in shower had a step, and that step kind of rested somehow between my chin and my chest. So it's pretty much right here the entire time. And I just remember just completely being caught off guard and freaking out about what had happened, what had just happened. And I just remember pushing myself up as much as I could. And for some reason, my body, my strength wasn't able to completely pick myself up at all. Every time I would try to do a push up, it felt like someone was swiping my hands from underneath me, and I would end up having to hit my head on the tile floor. And so I think I did that about 3 times since my chin was in the tub already. I heard myself breathing, and I heard it like an echo. And after the 3rd time of hitting my head and trying to push myself up, I just got really, really tired. And the only thing I could hear was my breathing getting a lot slower and slower. After the 3rd time, my eyes just got really, really heavy, and I just felt myself just starting to close them, and my breathing was slowing down at the same time. And out of nowhere, all I just felt was really, really sleepy and just really, really tired. And all I wanted to do was just rest. It felt like an eternity that my eyes were closed and I couldn't hear my breathing anymore. And then out of nowhere, it felt like someone had stuck like a pit of adrenaline in me. And I somehow mustered up the strength to push myself across the restroom floor. And when I did that, I felt my right foot kick a door stopper, kind of like a spring door stopper that I'm pretty sure everyone has in their house. And just out of pure instinct, my mind automatically thought of like, you need to kick that because no one else knows you're in here. And so I just began to start kicking that thing like crazy. After that, my brother actually heard me just making as much noise as I could. And he just came into the restroom. He just burst the door wide open and saw me there on the floor and was just pretty much freaking out from me being on the floor and not being able to respond and not being able to get up. And throughout the whole process, I was just telling everybody as much as I could. I fell on the floor. I don't know what's going on. I'm scared. I hit my head. I'm confused. And I remember my mom rushing into the restroom as well, and her being there and freaking out, not knowing what was going on. She was asking me questions, what was going on, what happened. And I just remember just telling her, like, I hit my head. I don't know what's going on. Pretty much the same thing I was telling my brother. But I realized that she didn't really respond to what I was saying. And so my mind automatically thought of like, no one knows what we're saying. No one knows what's going on. We need to figure out a way to let people know what happened. And so just out of like instinct, or what I pretty much think God was just there helping me out, I started finger spelling to my mom that I hit my head. And so after just finger spelling, finally being able to understand what I was going through, so she called the ambulance, and the ambulance rushed into the house, and they saw me there, and they began asking my family questions with what was going on with me. And I just, from what my parents have told me later, they were asking them questions about like, it's kind of like, well, who I was, how old was I, pretty much the normal detailed questions. And they came to my brother and asked him, had I done any like spices? And I think it like goes to show we weren't necessarily sheltered as a family, but we didn't really know much terminology about like drug use. And so spices in their eyes meant synthetic drugs. And my brother, him being as somewhat innocent as he was, out of just pure instinct, he was like, no, we only had cheese on our pizza. I'm pretty sure the paramedics were just very, very annoyed with that answer. And I feel like they were just looking at him like, bro, really? And my brother, from what I've been told, my brother was just very, very annoyed with that question and just yelled, we're not that kind of family. He doesn't do that. We're not those kind of people. And I feel like for me, I felt like a somewhat sense of pride with that, because I was just held to that high of a standard in my family, and especially in my brother's eyes. that they knew for a fact that I wasn't that type of person to go out and do pretty much anything that would hurt my body. I remember them putting me in the ambulance, and as soon as they closed the doors, they drove off probably like 15 feet, and that's where my consciousness started going in and out. Now, I just remember waking up on, I just remember waking up and them telling me that it had pretty much been 3 days since the incident, and I just remember them just being so confused on what was going on. Like not, I had no idea the extent to pretty much all the damage. All I know is that I couldn't get up for some reason. I was just really confused on what that was. But my first instinct was like, oh, we've been asleep for like 3 days. Our body must be super tired to the point where like we can't move. Then I just remember one of the main doctors came in and to pretty much explain what I had just gone through. And he pretty much just told me that I ended up having this massive stroke that damaged over 75% on the right side of my brain. And I just remember just hearing that sentence come out of his mouth and me just being so confused. And I was like, what do you mean I had a stroke? I'm 20 years old. That doesn't happen to 20-year-olds. Like, I'm healthy. I'm in really good shape. What do you mean? You must be mistaking me for somebody else or somebody older. Like, strokes don't happen to 20-year-olds. Strokes happen to people past 50, and even if that, I shouldn't have brain damage. My life is set. What are you talking about? I had a stroke. And I remember when he said that, I tried to get up and my body couldn't get up. It honestly felt like I was tied to the bed. No matter how hard I moved, I was just stuck to it. And they started explaining that I had a hole in my heart about 13.5 millimeters wide. And the ankle injury that I got from the tournament pretty much formed a blood clot on its own. And that blood clot went through my veins and ended up making its way through the hole in my heart. And after it went through my heart, it went straight up to my brain and damaged over 75% on the right side of my brain. And he told me after that damage was so severe, it made my brain start swelling. And that swelling was slowly starting to creep over to the left side of my brain. And if that swelling didn't stop, they were gonna have to perform surgery to pretty much go in and somehow cut certain pieces to stop the brain. And hearing that, myself and my family automatically thought like that's not gonna happen. Like we're not doing that. No one's gonna cut into my head. And so they gave us two options, and the options were to start a medication or pretty much go in and perform the surgery. And so we were very adamant that we weren't going to do the surgery. We didn't need it. So we decided to go with the medicine. And it took about maybe 3 days for that swelling just to stop from that medicine. And that was just the first big battle that we had to face. So after being in the hospital for about a week, I was pretty much taken to a rehab hospital in Westaco. And right from then was where I probably would stay for about a month and a half. And so when I got into that rehab hospital, I was rolled in on the medical bed or the hospital bed. And as I was being rolled in, the thought that automatically came to my head was no matter what we do, no matter how we do it, no matter how we look, we're gonna walk out of here. And so going into that place already with that mindset was just really, really big for me. About like the first night was probably one of the most hardest nights I had to go through. That was the first night. That was the first time and last time I was ever kind of really like depressed in a sense. And I know for a fact that I was probably depressed for maybe 8 hours. And I know that because I know I wasn't depressed for the entire day. I was wheeled in with spirits really high and very, very motivated to get back to work. But just the enemy just wanted to bring me back down to somewhat reality, and just to bring me to like a spot where like, hey, we're staying like this. Like, this is your life now, and this is gonna suck. Like your life is over. And so I just dwelled in that like mindset for about 8 hours. I pretty much had to like tell myself, and while I was telling myself, I knew I was just telling the enemy as well. This is not our life. Like we're not staying like this. We're 20 years old. We have so much life ahead of us. We're gonna get married one day. We're gonna have a relationship with somebody one day. They're gonna love us, and eventually we're gonna have kids. And that's not how we're gonna. This is not how we're gonna stay. Um, and just telling myself that over and over again um, just got me out of that mindset, and it just brought me back to, all right, let's get this going now. Being in that rehab hospital, I realized after a couple of days that I was probably the youngest there by about maybe 30 to 40 years. um, there was no one there even close to my age. The only person close to my age was a very young nurse, and I got close to pretty much that nurse and all the other nurses because I was the youngest one, and I was the person who would really want to talk to everybody. And so I just remember one time working out. It was probably the most impactful moment of my recovery process. It's impactful for me because I knew that I was covered. And it was when I was working out, and I was in the gym, and there was another older gentleman next to me. And I just remember just being there and just trying, just put as much effort as I could into the workout that they had me doing. And this old man takes a step back and just looks at me. And me just being really wanting to talk to everybody as much as I could, I just looked at him and I said, "Hi, how you doing?" And this man just had just a face of just pure anger and just like sadness covering him. And I remember stopping and asking him, how you doing? I did introduce myself to him, and this man just pretty much started venting to me, and he kind of just like poured his heart out into me. I remember him just telling me like, I have nothing to go back to. I have nothing to live for. I don't know how old he was, how old he told me he was, but I pretty much just remember him telling me, I'm pretty much working out, and I'm gonna go home and just sit there, watch TV at home, and sit there until I die, and wait till I die. There's nothing I'm going back to. There's nothing that I can live for. I lived my life, and then I got dealt this card. How is that fair? How is that good? How do you expect me to be this old, get dealt this card, work out, and just go back to how I was living before? So that's not how life goes. I'm pretty much waiting until I die at this point. And for me, just hearing that close to home, it felt like a gut punch. I felt like everything was going so well, and everything was just going so good. But I just really feel like that was the enemy trying to bring me back down to reality, or bring me back to that mindset of, hey, like, we're not going to come out of this. And I feel that moment was just so impactful for me, because at that moment when he was telling me that, I saw my mindset just so strong in my faith, and so strong in the love that I had for God, and the belief that I had in God, that I knew that I was okay, and I knew that I was going to make my way out of this situation. And I just remember just telling that old man, comforting him as much as I could. But at the end of the day, that man really had his mindset and didn't want to hear anything about it. So he ended up getting wheeled out, and I haven't seen that man since. But I just really hope that I impacted him enough for him to change his mindset. And so that moment was just very, very important to me, into my growth, into my how strong my mindset was to get better. And so I think a really big benefit of working out or being in a facility just full of older people was the fact that sometimes they didn't want to take their sessions to work out. And me being 20 years old and really, really on fire to getting better, to getting out of the situation, I ended up somehow taking all their sessions of those who didn't want to work out and just working out, and I ended up taking their sessions and giving and somehow applying them to myself. So there were times where I would probably work out like maybe 3 or 4 times a day. And so I think I worked out with almost every single therapist there at the facility, which helped me just get a relationship with pretty much everybody in that gym. It helped me just learn how to get better and learn how to do certain things with myself or with the new body I had, and just slowly work myself. I slowly started to get my strength back, and I think on the third day of being there, on the third day of being there, I was actually starting to walk again, and it wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, but for me, that was my like biggest like first steps. On the third day when I started walking, I knew in my mind, I knew okay, like this is working. Like whatever our mindset is at, and whatever like our strength that we're going to, like this is working. This is gonna happen, and we're gonna do this. So about a couple weeks go by, a couple months go by, my strength is getting a lot better. My face is starting to come back to pretty much normal. My speech is almost as if right back to normal, and just my mindset just kept on getting stronger and stronger, and my relationship with my family just got way deeper, and I started developing new relationship with other friends and family, and it was just a very very positive time moving forward from the biggest tragedy I ever had in my life. So looking back now, 4 years later, I'm currently 24 years old. Um, I just look back at little videos and like little pictures that I see as I was going through that process, and just watching how like I was just so surrounded by family, but mainly I was just so surrounded by God's grace and love throughout the process of every little thing. As time goes on, I get to hear certain situations or certain like little pieces of information that had happened when I was either unconsciousness or that I forgot. Um, like or little things that I didn't think about, or how like great that was, or how much of those little things made an impact on the process. A couple of examples that I can get that I was surrounded by God was when I was in the bathroom, when no one was able to really comprehend what I was saying. I was able to fingerspell, and for me, that just felt normal. Like, shouldn't everybody know another language? Because that was my second language that I learned, and for me, it just felt normal. But as time goes on, and I tell people about my story, I mention the sign language, and for it just blows their mind that I knew out of instinct to sign to my mom, and I just it's crazy to think that God was with my mom, or He was with her when she decided to teach myself and my siblings how to sign. Um, and I feel like for her, she didn't really think much of it, but it just blows my mind to look back at it, or to look back at that time when I was learning how to sign, that God was using that method of communication for that exact moment to let them know, to let my mom know what I was going through, what had happened in my situation. And so just thinking about moments like that just really show that God sets plans in motion way before we can even think about it. Another instance that I think that was pretty crazy was when I got sent to the hospital. The first hospital I went to was McAllen Medical, and as I was there, the doctors were just testing me on what was going on, what had they seen, and when they realized that I had a stroke, they just told my parents that there's not really much we can do here. So they gave my parents two options, and that was either fly me in a helicopter to San Antonio or drive me to Harlingen. And so, although a helicopter flight would have been really, really cool, I was unconscious, so I probably wouldn't have really enjoyed it. So they decided to take us to Harlingen, to Valley Baptist Medical in Harlingen. And as they were trying to figure out the process of how I was going to get there, in such a small amount of time. My family just told me that as the doctors were trying to figure out ways to get me their transportation, an or a paramedic had just walked out of the elevator and was talking to the receptionist, I believe, and he just like said out loud the patient that he was supposed to take at a certain time for some reason didn't show up or wasn't there. So he had already gotten back. He had just gotten back from gassing up the ambulance, and he was just there ready to go whenever anybody needed. And it was just so. And I think about it, and I was like, and it just blows my mind to see how God just works things perfectly in place. How that guy had just literally filled up his tank and was just ready to go for whatever anybody needed him at the exact moment the doctors were trying to figure out how I was going to get there. So as soon as they heard the paramedic talking about it, they're like, "Hey, we need you to drive this patient to Harlingen." And so the guy's like, "Oh yeah, for sure, let's go." And right then and there, we just took off. And as time goes by, my family tells me how many people were there, and how big the caravan behind the ambulance was as I was driving to Harlingen, and how many people were just there watching us or just there with us. So another instance of where like God was really working with me was, I think the second day after I woke up, one of the doctors that was checking in on me walked into my room with my files at hand and was just asking me questions about how I was doing. And I just remember just mentioning to him like, "Oh, I'm doing okay." And at this point, he hadn't even looked at his files yet. And he just stared at me as I was answering his questions and just looked at me and asked me, just came out of nowhere and just asked me, "Are you a believer?" And for me, I got real taken aback from that questions. I just remember him telling him, "Yes, sir, I am a believer." And he had like a really big smile on his face. And he just told my family, he just said out loud, he's like, "Oh, you're gonna be okay," and just walked right out. So just looking back at all those little miracles that throughout that process, I just really felt like just God was with me through it all. It just comforts me even more so. So 4 years later, I'm 24 now. My relationship with God is probably the strongest as it's ever been. I expected to come back to church, hoping just to find friends again that I kind of like broke ties off with when I left. And God just pretty much gifted me with an entire family of people who have been in my corner ever since the process started. And everybody that has made a huge impact in my life, from mentors to just really, really close friends that I can now go to whenever I'm going through certain things.
Man, what do I get? Wait a second, is that Lightning McQueen? No way.
Probably thank you isn't really close to being enough for my friends that have been with me through it all. My best friend Will, who was there with me through the whole thing, would visit me every now and then, or would visit me almost every day, whether I was in the hospital or when I was in Westaco. Just my friend of like really close, all my guys pretty much. Roy, Will, Mikey, Isaac, Mike, my brother JD, whose our relationship got a lot closer. My little sister Janai, who is probably tried to be as strong as she could through the whole thing, even though she probably cried a lot, probably way more than I did. My little brother Josiah, who's strong as always, was just there through the whole process. My parents, my mom and my dad, my mom especially, she's probably the biggest person I can thank the most. She just showed me how to just be strong in faith. I remember her telling me that through the process when she found out I had a stroke, that the prayer she had to pray, which still blows my mind to this day, just the fact that she had to pray that she fully entrusted God that whatever I was going to go through, whatever was going to happen to me eventually, if I was going to pass away or not when I was on life support for 3 days, that she prayed that, God, whatever happens, let your will be done. And for me, it just blows my mind for my mom to have that strong of a faith and strong of a belief in God to just fully entrust him in the decision that he makes, that she's going to be okay with it no matter what the choice is. And my dad just being just a very, very strong person and foundation, just to just be there with me and coach me and just keep me from not going too crazy. I want to thank Colin for being a huge mentor in my life, especially around this point in time right now, as I'm 24. Being a youth leader and learning from him has helped so much. From all the conversations we have, for me growing up as a man of my faith, I tend to always just look to him for advice or for ways like, hey, I'm dealing with this. What do you think I should be doing right now? I don't think I can say thank you enough to you, Colin, to help how much you helped me go through everything I've been going through recently, or through what I've been going through as years have gone by. To my friend group that slowly became my family. Ben, Isha, Rebecca, Sophia, Sammy, Victor, Daniel, Randy, all y'all have made a huge impact in my life, and I wouldn't trade any of y'all for anybody, as much as I want to sometimes with Daniel. But I love all y'all, and you guys have helped me way more than you can ever think of. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's helped me through the process, who's helped me who's given me like little information and little tidbits of how stuff went down when I wasn't fully aware or conscious. I just want to thank everybody, but mainly at the end of the day, the biggest thanks is always going to go to God. I wouldn't be here without you, without God. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be the man I am today if he hadn't decided to let me stay. So I just thank God that I'm here still.
Let's go!
And his shorts.
So disc golf, at the end of the day, was supposed to be just an extra outlet outside of therapy and rehab. And after a short period of time, it just became something that I really wanted to wrap my life around. So it's helped me overcome many things with mental health and kind of like spiritual health. My life probably wouldn't be the same it probably wouldn't be where it's at right now if I didn't find this sport. I think the biggest thing that I want this project to be for is for that person in the room, for that person watching. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know where your life has been. I don't know how dark it is for you, but it's crazy to think that an opportunity like a stroke, or it's crazy to even call a stroke an opportunity. But I fully believe that we're gonna go through things that during the process it's gonna be horrible, and all you can think about is, how can this happen to me? Like, why me? All I can say for you is just, there's always a better day. There's always a better way to look at life. You just gotta keep that head looking up and just gotta keep moving forward. So whatever you're going through, wherever you might be in life, God has way more bigger plans for you than you can ever imagine. And you just gotta keep moving on.